Hi, and welcome back to the ministry. In this video, I'm going to be talking about how life has changed and how my mind has been renewed since I got my purity ring. It's been 3 years now since I made the decision to get a purity ring as a symbol of my promise to God to wait for marriage. And I am a virgin. I've been a virgin my whole life, but the decision to actually save my virginity for marriage was, even though it was something I was taught from a very young age, I would say that I made the personal decision to commit to doing that. And, say I've made it this long, I'm gonna wait for marriage. When I was 21, that's when I got my purity ring. So, my father prayed over this ring, and this ring has seen so many life-threatening situations at this point where it could have gotten lost. It's a diamond ring because the purpose of my getting it was to be an heirloom for my future daughter. As I shared in previous videos, me, my mom, and my grandmother, so my mom's mom, all had dreams showing a little girl that looked the same. And so we all prayed over this baby girl we saw in dreams as God's promise I was gonna have a daughter someday. And the purpose of my getting this purity ring and it being a diamond was so I could pass it on as an heirloom to my future daughter someday as a symbol that, yes, I obeyed the Lord. Yes, I waited for marriage and married as a virgin, and I was successful in that. That was the purpose of the purity ring. And so this ring has seen life-threatening situations beyond what I can even say, where only God could have saved this thing at this point, and it's still on my finger. I still didn't lose it. I still haven't lost the ring. And so when me and my dad saw that, we're like, oh yeah, God's in this. We have faith in God to, see this through. But I want to share about things that I've learned and how my walk with God has honestly changed ever since I got my purity ring. So it's 2026. I got the purity ring in February of 2023. And I'm so nervous because I'm going to get more vulnerable in this, because I've been lately making a series of tea on what it's like to be a Christian virgin waiting for marriage, because what I experienced on my own walk with God is that being for a woman for the streets in the Christian church has become so normalized, and being promiscuous or an woman for the streets. So you lived in the world and then you turn to Christ and you're trying to re-wait for marriage, or if you're already married, be a submissive wife, all that. That's been so normalized that I found personally that finding other women who actually remain virgins until marriage has become quite rare, especially in the US, which is where I live. So the purpose of this series, has been for visibility for other women who, like me, have been struggling with feeling insane, crazy, and even having your friends, family think you're crazy because you decided to be a virgin who waited for marriage in hookup culture. Because I know I needed that type of visibility. And my healing journey has looked like finding other women who suffered with some of the struggles I went through just trying to be a virgin who waited for marriage in a world that thinks nowadays, since this world is so anti-Christ, thinks that's insane. Other women's testimonies of actually having waited for marriage have brought my heart so much peace. And that's the purpose of making these videos. So this is gonna be more vulnerable on how my life has changed as a virgin waiting for marriage, specifically since I got my purity ring when I was 21. I'm 24 now. I'm about to turn 25 in 3 months now. So, mentally, when I got my purity ring, the honest truth was the first time in my life that I began seeing myself as a wife. Having a ring on this finger, of course, made that a physical thing for me, like visual. But before that, because I grew up in such a sexualized society, Western society, full of hookup culture, full of young women, even I shared that I went to a Christian private school for high school, even where premarital sex and being promiscuous was normalized, even in the church, even in Christian schools, that was so normalized that when I got to the age of 21, which was the age I got this purity ring, and I found myself still a virgin, I felt like something was so deeply wrong with me for still being a virgin at the age of 21. I honestly, because my grandma Carmen got married at the age of 21, which was the age I was at that time, and her daughter, not my mom, but my mom's older sister, got married at 19. The fact that I was 21 at that time and still had never had sex or sexual intimacy, and I hadn't even had my first kiss, disturbed me really badly, because my peers, a lot of attractive young women among my peers, their body counts were insane. And I was seeing it as abnormal that at my age of 21, I was still a virgin. So when I got my purity ring, I was breaking loose from that mindset that there was something wrong with me just because I had gotten to the age of adulthood and never had sex. That was genuinely a thing for me, because it wasn't just the peer pressure, it was also the questioning, am I an attractive woman? Am I a beautiful woman? Am I sexy? Am I sexually attracted to the opposite sex? Because the fact that that hasn't happened for me at the time, to me, I looked at that and saw there's something wrong with me. And it really affected my self-esteem. It was something I had to work through in therapy. And yeah, so before I got my purity ring, I was not seeing the fact that I was still a virgin at my age as a good thing. I was seeing it, my mom can share all the times I ranted to her about it, about being like, what does that say about me as a person? That I'm still a virgin at my age, you know, in this sexualized society. But when I got my purity ring, it was the first time in my life that I was able to look at myself in the mirror, look at the ring on my finger, and look at everything that I was working for and what it represented, and see myself and say, I'm a queen, I'm a woman of honor, and I'm a wife. I'm still a virgin at my age because I'm waiting for marriage, because I understand that I'm a wife even in my singleness. That's what the Bible says. Eve was created an etzer in the Garden of Eden, a helper, a wife for Adam. And that was in Genesis. And in Proverbs 18:22, it's written, he who finds a wife finds a good thing and obtains favor from the Lord. I'm already a wife now. And so my being a virgin at my age is a symbol of the fact that I'm a wife now, and understand that the sexual relationship is for marriage. And I'm honoring the fact that in the Bible, it is written that a woman is a wife before a man finds her. So my getting a purity ring and having that physical representation of my covenant with Christ was the first time that really started to sink into me. That I'm a wife now. Hello, I'm that girl right now. And it doesn't matter that I've never experienced sexual intimacy, had sex or things like that, because that is not what makes me a queen. That is not what I'm deriving my worth from. I'm not deriving my worth from how much sexual attention I can get from the opposite sex. And when I was younger, I'm telling you, it was so normalized in my peer group that I thought that the fact that I hadn't experienced that meant something was missing from me. But as an adult, once I got my purity ring and started going through that mind renewal process, I started to understand that's not it. If I respect myself, I'm not going to share my body with someone who doesn't respect me. And respecting me in the Bible means marrying me. And the older I got, the more I began to see it become so real that was honorable. It wasn't worth what I thought it was worth back then, because I thought when I was younger that it would be worth compromising in that way to like feel sexy and have fun and experience, you know, that sort of lifestyle. But ultimately, now that I'm an adult, even though it was lonely, even though it was difficult, even though it was honestly painful, because I've shared in previous episodes of the tea on being a virgin waiting for marriage that when you abstain for a long time, it does something to your body. And anyone who's been a virgin for a long time knows, again, that this is a little TMI, but I share in the episode about pelvic floor dysfunction on the tea on being a Christian virgin waiting for marriage, that the pelvic floor physical therapists have seen multiple Christian wives who were virgins until they got married, and then they found that when they got married, they couldn't have sex immediately because of vaginismus. So when you keep it closed and you refuse to, and you're denying your flesh like that, it does something to your body. That's what I experienced. It does something to your body. It does something to your mind. To be constantly living in a state of self-control and controlling those urges for the sake of Christ, for the sake of your chastity. And so, yeah, that drove me crazy, right? Because that's not what people around me were doing, and that was not socially acceptable for me to be doing that. It got me respect depending on who I was dealing with. Honestly, especially since I became an influencer, I had never realized how much respect that would get me to still be a virgin at my age of 24. At the time I started the channel, I was 22. But now I understand it. When you're an adult woman and you're out of those horny, hormonal teenage years where all you can think about is sex, because that was what I was going through. All I was thinking about was sex, but I wasn't sexually active in any way. So it was driving me crazy because constant self-denial, right? But now I understand there was reward in the waiting, because now I don't have to worry about the stuff that the girls who were sexually active as teens have to worry about. I don't have to worry about my reputation. I don't have to worry about teen pregnancy. I don't have to worry about STDs. I don't have to worry about any of those things. I don't have to worry about anything that these women have to worry about. I get to look ahead to my future and know that when the time comes that the Lord sends me my husband, and again, this is my purity ring, but it's a symbol that I'm a wife now, I know that my husband is going to be my only person. I know that there's going to be no baggage when I go into marriage because I'm going to marry as a virgin. I know that biblically that's the best foundation that I can set for my marriage to last and thrive and never end in divorce. I know that what I did was worth it because I held myself and respected myself and held myself in dignity and honor in my singleness. And that says a lot about my character. And that's how the treatment that I got once I became an adult, it started to reflect that. I walked in dignity and I held myself in honor, and that's what I got back. Simple as that. And dignity has been a word in my spirit. Dignity and honor are a huge part of biblical womanhood. In the New Testament, it commands the wives of like deacons, I think, to be dignified. And the Proverbs 31 woman in Proverbs 31:25 is written to be clothed with strength and dignity in the New Testament, I believe. So dignity, my having been chased up to this point and starting to really own that, like when I got my purity ring, it taught me more about dignity. It taught me more about this is not something to be ashamed of. It's a way to tell the world that you respect your body and you have self-discipline, and your mindset is for the future. And it's not just for the now, for the quickest dopamine hit you can get. So honestly, once I got my purity ring, I started feeling like a queen. Like once I slipped this diamond ring on my finger and I'm like, this symbolizes that I'm the bride of Christ, because that was what I first called the ring before I started calling it a purity ring. I started calling it my bride of Christ ring. I was like, hello, I'm a queen, right? Like, I just felt like a queen. And it was so empowering that I was able to feel that way even while unmarried, because I'm still a wife even now in my singleness. And for me, it just empowered me to keep that mindset and wait until wedlock and honor wedlock and be like, until a man, switches out this ring, goodbye. Like, no, access denied, right? It was just very tangible. And that tangible reminder was so empowering for me personally on my own journey of self-respect, dignity, and honor. But yeah, and then it's just beautiful. The ring itself is just beautiful. But yeah, I'm trying to think of what else. I just got chills again. But yeah, I'm just thankful that God's kept me this far, and that I still have this ring after 3 years. Again, I'm gonna keep it on as long as I'm unmarried, you know what I mean? And if I never get married, it's gonna be my ring, right, for life. But it just makes me happy, because for me it was a statement to myself about the fact that I'm a queen and I'm a wife right now in my singleness. I think that's the bottom line, because wife is an identity in Christ, right, according to the Bible. But yeah, I feel like that's all for this video. I want to talk more, but I think that's enough. But yeah, love my purity ring. It just makes me feel like a princess to have the ring on. it just for me is a tangible reminder of the love of God for me. Every time I see it, I'm reminded this is God. God provided me this ring. I'm going to share the testimony in the description of this video that I already posted of how God provided a ring for me. But it's like, this is God. It's just a constant reminder of God's love for me, that I am the bride of Christ. And it just really does make me feel like a queen, and a princess whenever I, remember that. But yeah.